So there was some kind of new AI podcast thing that I heard about, and I was kind of confused how it worked, so I wanted to check it out for myself. So I took the script for the pilot for my superhero thing and fed it through. And, here's what it said.
All right, let's dive into episode 1 of this new series, A New Dawn, they call it. And yeah, it does feel like we're stepping right into, well, a classic comic book universe right from the get-go.
Definitely.
I mean, the story starts in a comic book shop. Kind of on the nose, don't you think?
Yeah, I see what you mean. You don't think that setting's too obvious?
This is the part that had me like,
Hey, fuck you.
but then they just proceeded to, sort of glaze me.
As the cool kids say.
Well, it makes you wonder, right? Like,
Yeah.
why start there? What's the point they're trying to make?
You've got a point. It's not exactly subtle. But then again, comic books rarely are, right?
Sure enough. But okay, so we've got this comic book shop, and that's where we meet Reggie, our main guy, working at Stanley's comic shop. The way they described it, all those details, like you can almost smell the old paper and see the vintage comics. It was vivid.
Yeah, they nailed that classic comic shop vibe.
Totally. Did anything specific grab you about that whole setup?
Well, beyond just, setting the scene, I think that comic shop is really important for showing us who Reggie is, deep down.
Oh,
How so? Think about it. The comics, the stories, it suggests this love for, well, escapism. Maybe even a yearning for something more than just everyday life, wouldn't you say?
yeah, kind of like it's his escape, his happy place,
Yeah.
where he can geek out without judgment.
Exactly. And it's in this totally normal seeming place that we start to see hints of something bigger, something stranger brewing.
You mean like that conversation Stanley and that older guy, Mason, were having? All hushed tones and weird looks.
Right, like they're in on some big secret, some knowledge about strange happenings.
It was like that classic movie moment, right?
Right.
Where the music changes and you just know something important is about to go down.
For sure. And they never explicitly say what those strange events are.
Talk about a cliffhanger. So frustrating, yet so good.
It's all about building suspense. They're dropping hints, leaving us wanting more. Classic storytelling.
Totally. And speaking of wanting more, we meet a ton of new characters in this first episode. Like, wow, Stanley, Mason, Ron, Jennifer, Devin, even this mysterious figure keeping tabs on Reggie.
Yeah, they really pack him in.
Seriously, where do we even start?
It's a lot to process, but I think each character, even the ones we only see briefly, has a role to play, like setting the stage for a big, intricate story.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this. So let's break it down. First up, we've got Ron, Reggie's best friend, the tech whiz.
Every hero needs a trusty sidekick.
And Ron totally fits that bill. Loyal, resourceful, the guy with the gadgets who can help Reggie when things get tough. Though it'll be interesting to see how their friendship changes as Reggie's, situation develops.
Then there's Jennifer. Talk about an entrance. She's a streamer, but get this, she's got a secret identity.
Ooh, yeah, that definitely caught my attention.
Makes you wonder, what's her deal? It's got to be a big part of the story later on, right?
I'd bet on it. It's a classic hook. Introduce a character with a hidden side and boom, instant intrigue.
Right. Based on what we saw, what do you think it could be? Some vigilante thing, maybe? Or could she have powers, too?
Honestly, it's a toss-up at this point. They gave us just enough to get us theorizing, but not enough to spoil the surprise. Clever, really.
Totally agree. And speaking of mysteries, we can't forget Devin, the school bully. Seems like your typical antagonist, at least for now.
Yeah, he definitely fits the mold.
But, and this is just me thinking out loud,
Yeah.
we've seen these kinds of characters become more complex as the story goes on, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Does he stay the stereotypical bully, or does something happen that changes his whole deal? Lots of potential there.
For sure. Okay, so we've got these potential allies, these possible enemies, and then there's that mysterious figure watching Reggie. Talk about creepy.
Out of nowhere, that one shot sent chills down my spine.
Seriously.
Oh.
So who do you think it is? A villain. Someone who'll teach Reggie how to use his powers. Or maybe,
Or maybe it's tied to those strange events Stanley and Mason were talking about.
ooh, good point. They're keeping us guessing, that's for sure. It's like the calm before the storm,
Totally. We're getting to know the characters, the tension is building, and then, bam, convenience store robbery.
Talk about an unexpected turn of events. 1 minute it's a normal night, the next minute Reggie's dodging bullets and taking down a robber with, like, super strength.
I know, right? The way they played that scene, I was like, wait, he has powers now. That's how it happens.
Right. And it's not even just the powers themselves, it's that he actually steps in this time. Remember earlier with the alley robbery? He hesitated, but here.
He doesn't even think twice. It's like something in him just snapped.
Yeah, like this instinct to protect, to do the right thing, even if he doesn't fully get what's happening to him.
For sure. That scene was huge for showing us what kind of person Reggie is, or at least what he's becoming.
Totally. But then he just brushes it off, acts like it was no big deal, almost like he's trying to convince himself it didn't happen.
Yeah, like it's too much to process, so he just shoves it down.
And then,
Yeah.
that dream sequence.
Mhm.
Or was it? I mean, that fight felt so real, so intense. By the end of it, I didn't know what was real and what wasn't.
Right. The way they blur those lines, it messes with your head.
Totally. On the one hand, Reggie just says it was a dream, but it felt like more than that,
Definitely. Think about it. The intensity, the fact that it echoes that earlier robbery where he didn't get involved. It's like his subconscious is working through something.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, was it really just a dream? Or was it a glimpse into what's coming for Reggie? So many questions. But even with all that mystery, it feels like this first episode, it's just the beginning, right? Like the first act in a classic hero's journey.
100%. We've got all the elements.
Yeah.
The ordinary life, the call to adventure, that initial hesitation. Heck, we're even starting to see the mentors and allies popping up.
Right. It's familiar territory, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly. These classic tropes, they're familiar for a reason. They draw you in.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to see how they'll twist those tropes. How will they make Reggie's story stand out?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think this episode does a great job of planting those seeds, setting up the stuff that'll make this story unique. The mystery surrounding those strange events. Jennifer and her whole secret identity deal, that creepy figure watching Reggie, it's all connected somehow.
Oh yeah, and we can't forget about Reggie's powers. Where did those come from? Are they like a genetic thing? Did something happen to him? So much we don't know yet.
Right. It's like they're giving us just enough to get us hooked, but not enough to figure it all out just yet.
And that's the mark of a good story, right? Keeps you guessing.
Absolutely. Keeps coming back for more.
So, to wrap things up here, I keep thinking about those last few moments. That dream, the unanswered questions, the feeling that Reggie's life is about to change forever. It feels like this is about more than just him getting powers, you know? It's about him figuring out who he is, what he's meant for.
Totally agree. It's that classic hero's journey, but it's also about responsibility. What will Reggie do with this power he's been given? Will he use it for good, or will it change him?
And how will everyone else react when they find out what he can do?
Mhm.
This episode just opened up a whole world of possibilities. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too. This first episode was just a taste, a glimpse of something bigger.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into A New Dawn, the first episode of this thrilling new series. We can't wait to hear what you thought, what resonated with you, what are your theories. Let us know. Until next time.